Hello everybody, my name is Alberto and I am a game developer. In today's Unity tutorial, I want to focus on the user interface and the localization system. I'm going to focus on the integration of the user interface in the architecture in the code design that we've been building in the past videos. And finally, we're going to see how this system design can make easy to localize all the text and everything that appears in our user interface. Let's then move to the implementation. In our game instance class, we are going to have now a new mono behavior, which is going to be the game UI behavior. Here you can see that I've tagged this as non-persistent. This means that this behavior is going to be destroyed and created again every time we make a transition from one scene to another one. Let's move down to the initialization method of the game instance. Over here, we're going to look for this game UI in the different objects in the scene, and we're going to make sure that it exists. Otherwise, we are going to log an error, so we are aware that something is wrong and we need to create this object. Afterwards, after creating all the systems, we're going to initialize the game UI. For the implementation of this game UI, it makes much more sense to take a look to a real case. And for that, we are going to look to the current project I'm working on. So this is the Unity editor in the project, the game I'm working on right now. And here on the left side, we have how the game UI object looks like. I just unfold it here and we can see we have lots of different UI objects. Each of them is in charge of a different thing, but what is relevant here, and I want to show you here before moving to the code, is that if we go to the inspector, this game UI behavior is no more than a container for all the UI. As you can see here, I'm just referencing everything and I'm doing nothing else but this. And we are going to look now in the code why this is quite powerful. And this is how the game UI behavior looks like. Over here we have all the references to the different UI objects. We have a public accessor for all of them. And in the initialization method, we are going to pass as arguments all the systems that are necessary to initialize each one of the different UI objects. And finally, we are going to disable all these UI objects. So over here, without entering in detail, the idea of this part over here is that we can cache anything we need from our UI. We are in the root of all our UI. So we can do this here after initializing all the UI objects. Then we cache any, I don't know, interfaces, whatever you need from the UI. This is the place, and this is very powerful. You can just get everything here, and you know you will get everything here. And to be sure that you won't have any more UI there objects that you will miss, there it comes the initialization part. And we're going to look at this now because here is where we need to allocate in memory anything we need. If you, for example, need different boxes like these pop-up boxes, it's just pop-up boxes will appear there with some information. So you need to somehow have a setting somewhere that tells you how many you will need as a maximum because you want to instantiate already all. And of course, having them disabled, no? Then you will just enable them. It's just a pooling way of thinking, no? Pooling system. And this is why it's so important and so good to go one by one, initializing one by one, passing all the systems that you need, and then you will be able to create everything you need, allocate everything you need in memory, and afterwards you're going to be able to cache any references to whatever is necessary here for you. We can also look to another example, in this case the enter confirmation. What is the enter confirmation? That this is just a box that appears there when, in this game, when you try to finish your turn. If there is something that you're missing, maybe you can still move units or whatever, you get a pop-up in the middle and you have to confirm or cancel. Okay, that's fine. But that can have different text, no? Why? Because in the pre-level that I call pre-level phase, and when we are deploying our unit groups, we have a different text for that than when we are actually playing the game. So here you can see that we have these two fields that implement this, well, they have this attribute, which is no more than a way that I implemented for my data system to be able to pick one of my data. In this case, I want to pick from the localizations, and I want to pick something that is going to be used for the level. And this is an integer, as you can see here, because this data has like a identifier, and it's just an integer, and this is how I'm creating my whole data system in the game. But that doesn't matter. What you can see here is that we have these two different texts. What we do is cache them in our class and as private fields. When we initialize, we are going to get the localized text for this one, and we have it already localized over here. But of course, you might change. No, we have a setting, we can change the language, and I want that when you change the language, everything changes at that time. And here is where we are entering already in the localization part. I have implemented this localized text setter. This interface is the one that's going to allow to make this process. When the localization changes, this method here is called passes the localization system in case you don't have it, but you could here cache it also, but it's not needed. And we're going to update again this text. So now we have the text cache in the right way. And this is a very powerful way of getting all your UI with the right language immediately. But you may say to me, okay, and what, this is just the text here is a string, but you are not putting it in the actual UI, right? Yeah, it's true. I put it over here. And this is just, I want to show you this a bit later now, and we will look at this, but I'm normally using the UI really with public methods, and I'm not doing any logic, almost any logic in the UI. So something is going to tell me what is the text to be shown. And this is normally the states in my game. And there is one state that is going to set the level message and the other the pre-level message. So if we here is where this is going to happen, and we then need to maybe do something in this state that is aware that, hey, the localization has changed. I need to tell the UI to refresh this text, and we will look at that in this process. So then let's talk about the localization, so we can see this, how this process happens, and what are the tricks I have in the localization to make the whole UI to change immediately and as fast as possible, of course. So if we move down in the game UI behavior, we have something here called handle language change event. Okay, this method will update the localization text, and this text over here is performing this. And we want to discuss if this is actually needed or not, because I said before that should this initialization part over here, sorry, should be in charge of creating anything we need, right? All set in memory. So in principle, you could cache this part over here that you see, getting all the iLocalized text setter. You could do it here, and actually it should be like that. So it's something I have to change at some point, but now I'm just getting it here, and what I do is to go over all of them and set the localized text. And this is the first step. No, this is so simple as this, and this will go through all the UI that is implementing this, and that's pretty straightforward. But who is actually calling this one? Okay, let's then look back to what is actually happening here. This is the game instance. It's called here game manager, but this is the same, it's the game instance. And let's just quickly, I don't want to go through all this code because it is a lot, but you will see that it's very similar to what we had in the tutorial. The non-persistent part, we have the game UI, right? Over here. The only difference is that if I go down, blah, 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 we have all these systems. You can see there are many more systems than before. We initialize the UI over here. You can see it. And this here, I'm registering to something which is our settings. No, I mean, in most of the games it's the same, right? You have a setting, and when you change this setting, in my case, the language ID, the language setting, let's say, then I want to handle this to happen. No? So, and this is what is going to trigger these three processes. The first part is to update the localization system. What is this doing? Well, it's not even need to go in there. We just update the container. We change from one language to another, right? So we are just updating all the entries of the dictionary. Then we tell the UI, hey, now you can handle the language change, and it will happen what we just saw before. And the final step is to say this game state system is what I showed you at the very beginning, right? Here is where we handle all the logic of the game. We have all the states, and the states might also send this request to the UI to refresh some parts. So we are going to handle the language change in here. And for this, I created a different interface because it's different. We're not setting the text, we're just doing something different. We're just listening to the localization change. And I just wanted to show you very quickly which state is actually doing this, for instance. And we have this state, the human action pre-level state. So human players, when you enter this state, we are performing this operation here. We are telling to the game UI, the human turn UI, the one we just saw, we are saying set the ready state text or set the end turn text, depending if we are playing a networking match or not. When we handle this localization change, we are going to do the same. So if we look back to what's actually happening, we first update the dictionary, the container where we have all the localizations. Then we tell the UI to update. And if we move here, we see the UI. What is the UI doing? Well, the UI is updating all these localized text that it has there cache as private fields. And then the state is going to tell the UI, hey, now I want you to set again the text for this field because the UI doesn't know which text is using, in this case, the turn button text, right? It doesn't really know what is using. It's the state who knows it. So, but the state, since we do it in order, because we're just telling first one thing, then the UI, and then this, then we are sure that this localized text is already updated. And this is how I handle the localization. And it actually might seem, it's pretty simple if you think about it. It's not that complex. And to be honest, what I've after working so much with Unity, what I found more useful is to make things simple in the sense that you could use a lot of people tend to tell in tutorials that you can use a lot of events, right? System Unity events or just the C# events to communicate. You know, like I don't know, my player is losing HP, and I just communicate it through events, or I just open close things with events. Well, the more events you use, the less control you have on the on this object itself, no? And it causes a lot of problems. And it happened to me a lot that suddenly, for some reason, then this UI disappear or the other blah, and this might be a bit more code, or you need to handle much more by hand, let's say, but you are sure that what you're doing is what is happening. So I'm setting the ready, I'm setting the ready, I'm setting the enter text, and I tell it myself when to do it. Not like an event that says, hey, when you are in the pre-level phase, set the this one, or when you are in this other one, I fire an event and then yeah, but that might can go wrong because your game starts be growing and growing, and that can go wrong. And then my advice is that is useful and should be done in certain cases, but just as if you can do things in this way, they are safer. And that's my advice. Okay, so after this philosophical talk, I'm sorry about it. Let's just look how this actually works in the game. No, let's just play here, and after just having all this talk about how to design it or not. Let's see how this actually happened or not. Well, I'm gonna keep this open so you can see what is turning on or off. And we're actually going to look a bit on the things, no? So if I go to the pop-up boxes, actually, I think, or yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's check if I see something, the deployment, no? Here, I have the groups view. Yeah, look how many things I have already. This is all created already. These are buttons that I'm using or not, and all these kind of things are already created and disabled. During the initialization process, everything was created. So there is nothing else that's going to be instantiated, and that makes the performance of your game much smoother. You don't have to create or destroy things. Okay, so let's say that I go to settings. Here I can change the name, the language, no? If I click here, you'll see everything changes already. I go here, everything changes to Spanish in this case. So I could be just moving here and everything is going to be Spanish. And again, German, it's not really set yet, but you see that there is no text. But yeah, let's move to English then. And let's go to multiplayer, for instance. Okay, let's go to local. I'm going to create quickly just to show you. Start the game over here, and we have this thing. And this is the second part, the part which is more difficult of the UI. No, over here now, and I wanted to show you this so you can clearly visualize what was the idea. If I click to deploy, it opens this UI over here. And I hope you can see this. Okay, so more or less, make it a bit bigger. You can see this UI and it is in English, okay? If I close it and I change now to Spanish and I open again, it is in Spanish. It is fine. But yeah, that's probably the easy way, right? It is just everything is changing because I'm closing and opening again, right? So let's just try something different. Let me, for instance, make one of the groups and let's end the turn. And I wanted to show you this because this is the one we've been talking. So this is the end turn confirmation UI. And then it says something about like, hey, do you really want to? Yes or no. So if I now change the language to English, everything changed. But it changed because of the three steps process. Because we changed the container, then we changed all the cache, all the localized text in this UI, and then we told the state to request the UI to update again these text in the middle. Otherwise, this text in the middle would still be in Spanish until we click again. Then it would be in it would be in English because then it's the process of disabling and enabling. It makes it happen. This no, the text is again set. Well, actually, not the moment we do this, but since we are changing the state from being in the end turn state or the other state, entering the new state is what actually triggers this thing, right? So that's basically what I wanted to show you over here. And yeah, so this is with the whole UI. And the moment you have a system implemented in the way I have now, it is very easy to build up now any kind of UI. I know what do I have to do to make sure that all the text are going to be fine, all the languages, everything is going to change immediately. And you saw that I don't have that much things, it's true, it can be, but it is pretty fast. There is no, I don't know, there is not a big latency here. And to be honest, I'm using my own localization system. And that's another topic I wanted to enter to talk about. So I've created my own localization system and I've heard a lot. People used to recommend to use things that are already built up to speed up your development. And it is true, it might help, but at the same time it might be the opposite. It happens to me a lot in my professional life, let's say my personal work life, that because we do not understand fully what is this third party thing doing, it causes us more troubles, more time to debug what is the problem than if Rather, we would have spent the time at the beginning to implement it ourselves. And the localization system is not that complicated to implement. To be honest, the localization system, the only part that you need to put maybe a bit of time is to make it user friendly. In my case, I have an Excel which I keep in Drive. I localize there the things, and then I just have something I will show you now in the editor where I just set the direction where this Excel file is, and is going to directly import everything to the game. So it takes less than 5 seconds to do this process. So of course you could automate the whole process from the drive to the Unity. Yeah, it's something that I might do, and now it's fast enough for me. And the implementation, as you can see, is just very straightforward. I just have a dictionary. It is not actually an implementation which takes care a lot of that is taking care for fast access, or I don't know. Otherwise, you could implement maybe your own dictionary, which is much faster than yeah, the collection that you get from the C# collections, no, from the standard libraries. But yeah, what you can see here is that this is just getting all the values from this data, which is here, try get setting current value, blah, blah, blah. And we have these data objects. And this, of course, this is an implementation. It took me some time. The whole data system, I also spent some time doing this, and I encourage you to also do it. You need to have a proper data system in your game. And here is where I'm just getting this localization data, which I convert, or this is, I think it's just very simple. It just have different localized text, and this localized text, I think, is just the language. Yeah, the language ID and the text. So that's what we're doing here, and then I'm just putting all this in this dictionary, in this container. And when I say get localized text, well, just basically looking for that one. And if it doesn't exist, I log an error because there is something wrong there. It should exist. And this is the way I have also to always when the project is growing, you really need this logging because you might miss things. And then this will tell you, oh yeah, I forgot to do that. Oh, I should have done that. So I just also encourage you to program in this way. Well, thanks a lot for watching. I've talked much more than I expected, much more from the UI and localization, but I hope I gave you some also useful tips about coding with Unity. Yeah, for the next video, I probably will do a video update on this game because it's now in a moment which is I really want to push it further, and I need to make a video on the progress I've made, which is quite a lot. And yeah, for what it comes to the Unity tutorials, I'm not sure what will be the next ones, but yeah, I always have some things in my head. I hope this of the UI localization is something interesting for you. Just just put your comments over there if you have some other thoughts that you would like to me to talk about. Yeah, that's the easiest way. So yeah, with that, that's all. So thanks for watching, and yeah, I hope to see you next time.